Before lock right here at Awesemo.com, as we are here to break down UFC 259, which will start here in just under 75 minutes. We have got 15 fights for you to talk about here over the next 75 minutes or so. We are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com to take a look at the contest they have got going on over there. And you got to use that promo code Awesemo when you sign up. It'll get you an instant first match deposit up to $50. Sign up today. Player prop contest. I was in those player prop contests a little bit earlier for got the DraftKings lineups done, but went over to the Monkey Knife Fight, got those in there. But of course, as always, I'm joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. Pete, great to be in here on a Saturday talking to you, man. As I mentioned, I've got a 20 entry max in, and so I probably spent about a good hour trying to figure out what I wanted to do there, and really just it came down to how much exposures I wanted on the main event and co-main event.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And if you're new to MMA DFS, welcome to the beautiful sport of MMA. We're on a little NBA hiatus right here, so with open arms, we're welcoming you guys over here to MMA DFS, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. I mean, you couldn't have picked a better card to come over to. I mean, honestly, Jason, you're stacked from the top to the bottom, right? As far as like lineups wise, for me, I kind of waited a little too long, to be honest. I was caught up training, and then last night and throughout the week, I was caught up on writing a ton of articles for Awesemo that you guys can check out. It could be helpful tools. So I was banking on like being able to enter a certain contest and hit it with a 150 max. But of course, the contest I was eyeing filled. So I'm stuck with a 20 max today, but I'm okay with it. And I'm looking forward to breaking this fight card down. And, to me, it comes down to just prioritizing, which main event spots, which title fights are you prioritizing, and, which underdogs are you allowing exposure to, how much Blachowicz are you getting to, how much Sterling are you allowed in your lineup? So many options here. The idea of stacking to me is just completely out the window.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only fight that I would remotely consider stacking would probably be Jan Sterling, just because I think that fight's going to go 25 minutes. I don't see a stoppage coming in that one. I mean, kind of my thought process on my 20 max was I kind of said, okay, I want to get around 50 to 60% Amanda Nunez. I wanted to have one lineup with Megan Anderson, just cover my bases there. She's in there. I mean, look, do I think she's going to win? No, I do not. I think this is going to be Amanda Nunez. I think she's going to, I think this likely, I would be surprised that fight hits the third round. I might be surprised if it's the second round. I just think it's a wide range of talent. Because I sit there and say, it's like, you look at Megan Anderson and you say, tell me, when you watch her on film, tell me her path to victory.
Yeah, I shouldn't say non-existent. It's minimal.
Everyone loves looking at that under 7,000 fighter and says, who can pull it off? So I go one lineup. That's all I'm putting her in. And then I said, I knew Jan Sterling, I think, is a fight that you have to hit. I that's the one fight I believe that, and potentially Peter Yan, I think, is a kind of a sneaky champion or MVP play, whether you're talking about on Super Draft or over on FanDuel. I think that's one you got to look at. I didn't want to have more than about 20 to 25% Jan Blachowicz, even though there is a prop bet that Pete thinks I'm a little crazy on. Is he by submission plus 1,800? Heard it here first.
That ain't happening. Okay.
If that comes through, I fully expect that video clip Tyler to send me after the show.
I mean, Jan Blachowicz does have a grappling background. He's a decent wrestler, but he is a BJJ black belt. So I mean, stranger things have happened in the octagon, especially when people are rocked. And you take advantage of that and you sneak onto their neck, grab a hold of their neck and grab a submission. But I mean, I think that's crazy to me. I just think that Adesanya is going to outpoint him, potentially TKO him. I don't really have much Blachowicz at all, despite being in a 20 max. I understand that he has a great chance to win. He's a bigger guy here. He's a stronger guy. He looked impressive at the weigh-ins. I thought that Israel Adesanya has a good frame for the weight class. but he will be the lighter guy, obviously. And what happens if he gets pressed against the cage? How does he deal with that? What happens if he gets taken down and controlled? We haven't really seen him in those spots. So, you could do worse than Blachowicz at 7,000. He's definitely a priority for value plays to look at. But I do believe that Aljamain Sterling is a great value play and probably a better value play than Blachowicz. I'm still favoring Peter Yan quite a bit in the matchup. I think that Peter Yan is just going to put out like a masterpiece and, just show that he's going to be the champ for a while. But stranger things have happened. Sterling, Blachowicz, 0 Megan Anderson for me.
Here's the thing about Peter Yan, and you look at his path to the title and you say, who is his best win against?
Yeah.
It would be Jimmy Rivera, where you look at the resume of Aljamain Sterling, who he's just fought the tougher competition. And I think that's where a lot of people who are looking at Aljo, that's one of the things they're pointing to, is that Peter Yan has not fought the strength of schedule that Aljamain Sterling has.
Yeah, it's fair. It is fair, but sometimes none of that matters. And, you could have a guy like, Frankie Edgar, who's fought everybody, obviously at the tail end of his career, and going up against Corey Sandhagen, who is on the rise and has been relatively untested, coming off of a good win, but, also a defeat to Aljamain Sterling. And he took advantage of that opportunity. So it's good to weigh strength of schedule and somebody's resume, but it's important to not get blinded because MMA math does not work. And, we see it every weekend that, one slip up, one punch, one takedown, everything can change. MMA is the wildest sport out there. So split your exposure. Sterling's a very strong value play, but I do favor Peter Yan here.
By the way, we do have a nice gift for you. If you head over to Awesemo.com right now, MMA ownership projections are free content today. So as you're developing your lineups here over the next hour, head over to Awesemo.com to check out those ownership projections so you can see who maybe you should be targeting. Definitely want to talk about some of those fighters that are under 20%. Also, if you ever do miss the strategy show that me and Pete do on Thursday, is a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to Awesemo.com/podcast to subscribe to the feed, and be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review with your Twitter handle or email address, and you will be eligible to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible to win up for 1 year. I do want to mention a question in relation to a topic we wanted to talk about is our thought processes from the weigh-ins of what we saw yesterday. And one of the questions over in Slack from Toolbox, he said thoughts on Askar Askarov at the weigh-ins. My biggest takeaway from it was he missed his weight by 1 pound. I want to say there was an hour left in the weigh-ins. He could have tried to cut the additional weight. John Anik immediately comes on the scale on the mic and says, he's missed weight. He will not attempt to re-weigh in. And to give you a little insight, kind of, because one of the things you'll notice is the guy for the commission that was there, he was saying the weight so fast. The reason is the real scale was kind of behind the scenes. They had already weighed in. That's a little bit for his show in terms of that. But to me, my big takeaway was clearly he could not cut any more weight, and that his team decided we're done. That would be my one takeaway from the weigh-ins. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can tell you firsthand, that's exactly what happened is, when a guy and a fighter they feel depleted, even that 1 pound seems extremely difficult to manage. And, missing weight by a large amount can show that maybe the fighter didn't take the fight seriously. Maybe they had an injury throughout camp. But when a fighter misses close by a narrow margin, and they don't attempt to reweigh, it does, make me worry because I understand that they feel zapped already. They don't want that hour to go attempt that, that extra pound, despite the fact that they're going to get fined for missing weight. And, let me tell you that a fighter wants all of their money. And, the fact that the guy's not going to attempt it could be strategic, but from the looks of it, it looks like he just had a poor weight cut. Maybe he mismanaged something. Maybe he underestimated something. And, 1 pound, he could have grinded that out and, got it done pretty quickly. So I do still like Joe Benavidez in an underdog spot. I think it's an interesting spot, just definitely not my favorite fight to target.
Yeah, the flyweight fights are definitely fights I'm not necessarily targeting in terms of DFS, but I do think that you could look at it from a betting side of it, maybe take the over 2.5 rounds on those fights to potentially find an angle there. By the way, speaking of the betting odds I mentioned about that Izzy by submission prop, when that thing cashes, I'm blowing up your phone tonight.
I will be blown away if that happens.
I just look. I think is if you listen to Izzy's interviews leading up to this one, he keeps talking about there's a method of victory that he doesn't want to talk about. Well, he just got his purple belt, so makes me wonder if this fight goes to the ground. Maybe does he try to choke him out instead of finish him with strikes?
Man, I don't know. Do what got you to the show.
I know you think
man.
I'm crazy. You think I'm crazy. I know.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I do think that's a little wild. I mean, the plus money's nice because anything can happen, but I think there are some other bets to target that I think are quite interesting.
Yeah, someone was asking me about underdogs to potentially target here, and just looking. Of course, you can check out the odds over at oddshopper.awesemo.com. I look at, there's not like a drastic underdog that I'm like saying, man, that's someone to target. Maybe someone like a Kyler Phillips at plus 152 is someone to look at. But I think you got to look at, potentially some props of like, I'm looking more over under numbers than anything else, because there are some fights that I think have got a high probability to go 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the under over on some things. Some prop bets that I thought were quite interesting. I do think that Islam Makhachev via decision is interesting. Drew Dober surrounded by a quality team elevation. Maybe he's brought in some strong sparring partners, but I also think Islam Makhachev via submission is something to consider as well. You talk about large plus money in that situation. Another fighter that I think at this moment is not an underdog anymore, but started off as an underdog was Tim Elliott. If you were able to get him as an underdog, that was an interesting spot there. But also Tim Elliott via submission is something a little interesting that I wouldn't mind targeting as well.
Yeah, that's definitely one to pay attention to there. Of course, I mentioned about ownership projections are free today over at Awesemo.com. Our MMA ownership projections also free today is our NHL player projections. And when you want to get access to all the premium tools and content we have over at Awesemo.com, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus weekly pass for $29.95. And if you just want an MMA weekly pass, that is $8.95. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Just go to awesemo.com/join to sign in today. Before we get into the questions, one last thing I'll ask you. Any fights are you avoiding?
I mean, let me look. For the 20 max, I feel a little skeptical about the Casey Kenny-Dominic Cruz fight, just based on Dominic Cruz's, fighting style, of how evasive he is, of how he likes to frustrate his opponents, basing it a lot on footwork, head movement, making them miss like a matador style. So I do still favor Casey Kenny, although I understand the risk in targeting against Dominic Cruz, arguably the greatest bantamweight ever. But if you actually go back, Jason, true or false, Royce Gracie has more or less wins than Dominic Cruz in the past 5 years.
Royce Gracie has more wins than Dominic Cruz had in the last 5 years. I'd say it's true.
Yeah, it's a tie. They both have one win in the past 5 years, and it's pretty remarkable. Like Dominic Cruz, like last win against Uriah Faber. During that time, we have Casey Kenny, being extremely active, has been in the cage and especially the octagon a lot. So he's been getting his live reps in. So it's a tough fight, but for DFS wise, 8,100, the only thing that would really make me want to target that fight is just the salary.
By the way, CS, I appreciate you in the super chat. He asked what we think about Kennedy and Santos as deep sleepers.
Yeah, so like Kennedy and Jake True, I said that better the other day. He's going up against Israel Adesanya's main sparring partner, right? So Israel Adesanya has been needing to surround himself with larger guys, especially to imitate Jan Blachowicz. Well, Carlos Ulberg is one of those guys. And Carlos Ulberg, when you hear Izzy talk about him, you hear Adesanya talk nothing but great things, saying how when they spar, Adesanya does not look forward to that because Olberg hits so hard, he's so aggressive, and he's so technical. Now, in the grand scheme of things, he is quite green. He is only 3-0, 5-0 on some websites, but he does have some kickboxing background. It's just the ground game is absent. I mean, I'm sure he's been working on it, but if Kennedy Nzechukwu is able to start to implement takedowns, he's in an interesting spot at 7,200. Probably favor Thiago Santos, to be honest, because Thiago Santos has fought an entire resume of studs and a win, almost a win over John Jones, and big knockout power. He's dangerous. He's a big guy up against Alexander Rakic, where Alexander Rakic and him on the feet should be extremely competitive, but you would like to see Rakic look to take him to the mat to potentially, expose that gap in his game, similar to how Glover Teixeira did. But Thiago Santos can rock you and knock you out on the feet. So I think that he is an excellent live underdog, and I target him a decent amount.
Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to hit that up in the YouTube chat. And also be sure to subscribe also right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. And, of course, give this video a thumbs up. Really would appreciate that. Denny Diamonds over in Slack says, with Nunez ownership dipping, would she be a lock-in in just about every lineup? I wanted to limit my exposure a little bit on Nunez. I mean, like, I was thinking Thursday that I was going to have like 70, 80%, but, there becomes a salary aspect to this of her at 9,600. And one of the things I did in my 20 max was I created 5 lineups where I had at least $500 left on the table to try to be a little different.
Yeah, I think that leaving salary on the table is how you get closer to reaching towards the optimal. Obviously, you need to go 6 for 6 in your picks. That's just how it is. You have to have them all correct. And it's so terrible when you're 5 for 6 and that one fighter that should have got it done for you just doesn't. And you're kind of just like, man, you see the potential in that lineup. But definitely leave salary on the table. Mix up your exposure. But Amanda Nunez, it depends on what type of DFS player you are. If you're a bold DFS player and you don't enjoy min cashing or middle cashing and you want to really go for the top, Megan Anderson's the ultimate leverage dart thrower, right? Like, everybody's going to be on Amanda Nunez. And if for some reason Amanda Nunez has an off night, you could shoot up to the top, but you also have to combine that with 5 other correct fighters. And for me, I think that Amanda Nunez has shown enough in the cage, in the octagon, to feel confident in her, especially in this fight.
And when you look at the ownership projections, which are free, it's kind of surprising that Megan Anderson is not the lowest owned fighter. Liviana Souza, someone you talked about, on Thursday. Yeah.
So, I mean, like, going into the fight, you'd look at Liviana Souza's experience, her resume, and, you think on paper she's 14-2. She hasn't really shown her whole game in the UFC yet. And she's very talented, good judoka, good jiu-jitsu. I would say bad striking because she relies heavily on an overhand, whereas her opponent, Lemos, is talented everywhere and can excel in certain departments. But at the weigh-ins, I didn't like what I saw from Liviana Souza. She looked flat. She didn't really look to be in the best shape. So that's something to take into consideration. Perhaps the public is noticing that about Liviana Souza, but that's another leverage play right there where outside the UFC, she was incredible. She has not shown it in the UFC yet.
Jordan says, he goes, why am I getting 8% Jan on DK? No tweaks yet. Seems a little high on the underdog. Where will you be at that fight? Yeah, I'm at about 20%. What you got to do is go into Fantasy Cruncher and set your exposure to Jan at only 20% so you don't get, or whatever percentage you want him at. So it's not going to spit out, someone that you don't want it that high. That's the best way. I will tell you what I do for the most part in Fantasy Cruncher. When I'm doing whether, sometimes it's, if I'm, create 150 lineups or maybe more than 150 lineups, is I'm going to go 20% randomness and at least 2 unique fighters per lineup.
Yeah, it's not a bad process at all. For me, I on a card like this, I think it's a little difficult to try to have exposure everywhere if you're not in a 150 max. So for the 20 max, I kind of had a more selective core and then kind of alternated some underdogs into my lineups.
Next up, Clement saying takedown city candidates.
Love it. I love it. I love how everybody's kind of using the term now. So I think Drew Dober could be.
Yeah.
I think Drew Dober could be a guy that gets taken down to take down city. He might be the mayor by the time that he's done with the fight. We don't know. I think that Islam Makhachev is a guy that can dictate where the fight takes place, take you down, put good ground and pound on you, has a strong submission game, adequate striking at this point, right? Like his lone loss is via knockout. So if you want that knockout narrative, you could do worse than Drew Dober. Like Dober has exceptional power for the division. And the last time that Makhachev faced a guy in a lefty stance, he got knocked out. So Dober is a guy that I think should be in 10% of your lineups. But I do favor Islam Makhachev. I think it could be a control-based win, could result in a lot of takedowns and eventually a submission win or a ground and pound finish. So I think that he's in a good spot there. And as far as everybody else on the card, right? The only other thing I would say is Tim Elliott's a guy that has broken the slate so many times, positive and negatively. Like we have Tim Elliott going out there, racking up tons of points because of his aggression, because of his pace. But with a guy that's so reckless and like the Energizer Bunny, he gets, he runs into shots, he runs into submissions. If he's able to somewhat calm down under James Krause, he's another name to think of for the takedown aspect.
Come on, Megan Anderson. That's another one that could go take down city. Even though I think it's going to end early, but if that fight makes it to the championship rounds, to me, that means Amanda Nunez has taken her down, and keeping her there. The other one that I may would point to potentially, about Sean Brady using takedowns to take Jake Matthews down.
Yeah, so I love Sean Brady, and I've been talking him up ever since he made his UFC debut. I think that he's a well-rounded fighter, good striking, good wrestling, strong, underrated jiu-jitsu game. And if you look across the cage, Jake Matthews has a lot of those attributes as well. But I feel like he's not quite at the level of Sean Brady, and I think that maybe they can nullify each other's strengths in moments of the fight. I do expect Sean Brady to, come out with the W, but I don't know if he's able to really impose his will like he has in his previous fights. I mean, Christian Aguilera, we both know, not the best ground game, not the best, takedown defense. And you saw, Brady go in there and do what he does and get a nice victory there. So I think that he can definitely have moments against Jake Matthews, but it could be an underwhelming score.
Yeah, very much so. Cash, this is a DraftKings cash question. Higher win percentage, Bontarian or Phillips?
It's a great question, and I'm glad somebody brought that up because Rogerio Bontarian is a guy that I actually started to put into a few lineups. And the reason I put him in a few lineups, despite my love for City Kickboxing and Kai Kara France, is because Kai Kara France slips up in the UFC sometimes. He's a little inconsistent, right? And if he's able to get matched on the feet by Rogerio Bontarian and Bontarian's able to press him against the cage, work some takedowns, it's an interesting underdog. I really like the underdogs north of 7,400. Kyler Phillips is another great underdog, but he is going up against a strong opponent in Song Yadong. Good boxing, questionable wrestling, questionable gas tank. I definitely think that Phillips can pull the upset here. He's going to have to rely on takedowns and a strong jiu-jitsu game and his kicking game standing up to get it done. But, man, I can see Phillips winning more likely. No, I take that back. I think Bontarian has a higher finish upside.
Let me ask you this. How many challengers in the title fight will walk away with the title tonight? I say 2.
I say 0. You say 2? Jason's sipping something before the show. I don't know with Jason's. Yeah.
Aljo and Adesanya walk away as champions tonight.
Oh, okay. That's it. Okay. Okay. You kind of got me on that because they're both champions. So, and I understand it's at 205. I thought you were saying you were backing Jan Blachowicz. So I am backing Adesanya. I'm backing Nunez, and I'm actually backing Peter Yan. So I can understand the Sterling comment. But that was tricky.
I'm just over here, I'm just trying to help people out over here. Just kind of Shane mentions this one. This was a thought I was going through is Jones as a bargain basement. I really was trying to limit what I had on Trevin Jones. I really like Mario Batista in that fight. But when you're taking those high 9 and high 8 options, you got to go down to that level.
I mean, I guess you do. Trevin Jones did it last time. And in my article, I said, does lightning strike twice here? Because he was getting worked by Timur Valiev from pillar to post, getting beaten like crazy, getting hit and having to shell up and defend himself, and showed a lot of toughness in that fight. So I want to give him props in regards to his toughness. Like, the guy's game, he's ready to stay into the fight. But as far as like how he got the victory, he caught his opponent with a very nice counter shot after getting destroyed, and then followed up with some ground and pound. Now, I can make that puncher's case, or that, the puncher's chance case for a lot of fighters on this fight card. I just think that it's a low outcome to happen against Mario Batista, coming from a well-schooled gym in the MMA lab. I think that, Batista is he's well-rounded. He's okay everywhere. And as long as he doesn't get reckless and make a mistake or run into a shot, I mean, I think that Batista should outclass him here. But if you believe that Jones showed you something in that first fight, and the fact that he did finish Timur Valiev, I can't fault you.
Bro, the fight should have been stopped in the first round.
Yeah, I know.
The referee in that fight did not give Timur Valiev the same that he gave Trevin Jones in the first round.
100%. 100%. Because it was like a makeup call. It's like, I know I screwed up. I should have stopped the fight. So I'm going to stop it now because somebody's actually hurt in the fight. But, it's MMA. It's a lighter weight class. So with lighter weight classes, you tend to see less finishes. 135 pounds. I really wouldn't bank on Trevin Jones getting another knockout here. I would rather, take my chances on a guy like a Thiago Santos, who's at 205 pounds.
It's a guy question over in Slack about favorite FanDuel MVPs. The mentioning fading Nunez at MVP, which, look, that's going to get you away from the ownership, which I think is a good play. As I look at, even though I like Aljo, Peter Yan as an MVP on FanDuel, I think could break the slate if he gets the win.
Yeah, I think it's a smart call at 18. I mean, they really priced up Sterling, and it goes to show you the respect that it's a very competitive fight. It's a tough fight here. I think that Peter Yan is interesting at 18. I think that he can pull it off.
Thiago Santos could be interesting if he can stop the takedowns and get the knockout. That's another one that seems interesting. Look, if you go away from Nunez, Adesanya, and Medic, you can get great return when it comes to going against the ownership. So, I think if you're over there on FanDuel, I think that is something to potentially look at. Seeing a couple of comments that Adesanya is going to lose time. This is the one thing. I think the question is how much will the speed, how will Yan be able to handle that speed? Makes me kind of wonder how much of maybe a smaller guy did Yan bring in to work with to try to mimic the speed advantage that Israel has in this fight.
Yeah, he did. If I remember correctly on the Countdown show, he did mention a fighter that is a strong striker that has been a large component in his camp to mimic Israel Adesanya. Now, granted, there's only one Israel Adesanya, so trying to mimic a style in a guy that's so prolific in all striking departments is very difficult to do. But I think that we are at the highest level of the sport. If you're not bringing in sparring partners to emulate your opponent, you're doing something wrong. So everybody on this card should be fighting or sparring or training with people that are similar to their opponents. So I definitely believe Jan Blachowicz brought people in.
Yeah. Kind of moving on with some of the questions, looking in there. Mike brings up this and more of a comment saying there's 15 fights, so guarantee you don't need 3 title fights to be optimal. I mean, I think the question is if you're a multiple lineup player, build lineups that have 0 fighters in the title fights.
Yeah, if you want to be different, right? I mean, I feel like having one, though, the likelihood that 3 5-round fights don't come into the optimal lineup would blow my mind based on the salaries of the underdogs, of course, and the spots that they're at. Like Amanda Nunez is being delivered a softball right here. I mean, if you look at Megan Anderson's entire body of work to this point, she does not deserve a title fight whatsoever. Does not deserve a title fight whatsoever. There are literally nobody else in the division. So, I think having one fighter in a title fight makes a lot of sense, and just one can make it different.
And to further that point on Megan Anderson, this is her last fight on her UFC contract. She's betting on herself, but it also sounds like maybe the UFC wasn't looking to extend. Now, if she wins, she does have the Champions Clause, but I think you can kind of see the writing potentially on the wall of what's kind of the UFC is looking at here at 145 pounds. Best cash play under 8,000.
Best cash play under 8,000. Well, I think the easy answer would be would have to be Aljamain Sterling because of how competitive the fight is. It's a 5-round fight. He has a strong wrestling game, and the new DraftKings scoring, even the old one, favored grapplers. But, now you're really talking about a reduction for strikers. So I think that Aljamain Sterling, whether he wins or loses, is one of the best value plays under 8,000.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the loser of Jan Sterling and saying this fight goes 25 minutes, I could see the loser still 60 points-ish.
Yeah, so can you imagine if all 3 title fights go the distance? We could be looking at big totals. You could be looking at a decent score from the underdogs as well, because if a fight is going 5 rounds, for the most part, you would think that the underdog or the other fighter would have moments of being competitive. Maybe it's like a 3 rounds to 2 type of fight, and Adesanya squeaks out and gets the W. So we'll have to see how it plays out. Overall, I'm excited for the night. And Jason, we have 672 people joining us right here. I'm sure it's a lot of people from the NBA shows, but also because this card is incredible. Thank you guys for joining us. Hit that thumbs up if you're liking what you're hearing right now, and post your question into the YouTube chat or into our Slack, and we'll get with you right away.
And of course, one of the things you do see when you pop in those leaderboards, you see that Awesemo avatar on those DFS leaderboards. And if you rock our avatar on your DFS profile, you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus when you place within the top 3 in any GPP of 5,000 plus entries. Head over to awesemo.com/announcement/avatar, or simply Google search Awesemo avatar for instructions on how to download that image. One lineup. Do you want one or none of Trevin Jones?
Give me none.
Yeah, I'm none there. Another one over in Slack. Kenny looked good last fight. Any thoughts? I think that's a cash fight. I really don't think that's a GPP fight.
Look, nobody knows Casey Kenny better than Jason Floyd, because Jason's been interviewing this kid for like 3 years now. And I will say that Casey Kenny's obviously been the guy winning inside the octagon, has shown, big improvements, has a nice win over Nathaniel Wood, just good wins overall, complete game, strong striker, strong wrestler. But I think that he could get frustrated in moments here. Probably not my favorite GPP play or GPP fight, but I can make a case for either guy. I am still slightly leaning Casey Kenny, which is crazy.
By the way, Tilt Chan, when there's no hate on Trevin Jones here, it's more about Mario Batista than anything else.
Yeah.
By the way, Mario Batista, just rolling with that Miguel Torres, old WEC with that mullet. Did you see that yesterday?
I did. And if people don't know who Miguel Torres is, my goodness. And I had to do a double take. I really thought I was looking at him. So, maybe the mullet gets him some bonus points in this fight too.
Yeah. Jets World says, why is Anderson $13 on FanDuel? No clue.
Yeah, I don't know. She should have been 7.
Even at 13, I mean, it's not a value play on FanDuel. It's just not.
Well,
at $13,
okay, right? Typically, let's talk about it. Typically, FanDuel will, price up the underdogs in the 5-round fight. So they did to a point in the Blachowicz and the Sterling fight. And I think even pricing up Megan Anderson at 13, they're like, yeah, it's slim to none. It's not going to happen. So I think at 13 is still too much.
I'd rather take Kyler Phillips at $12.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Kyler Phillips, $7,400 on DraftKings, $12 on FanDuel. He was one of the fighters that I was thinking about, one of the best value plays under 8,000. It's Aljo, but a fighter that I think is going to win is Phillips.
Next question, Mr. Bubbles talk about Alon Cruz being the underdog. I'm very familiar with Alon Cruz being here from my hometown of Tampa. He did make the decision to move his training out to Las Vegas, which I do believe was a smart decision. Now fighting at 155 pounds, so he's not cutting down to 145 pounds. If you go to my Twitter timeline at Jason_Floyd, you'll see a video I posted, I want to say it was yesterday, of Julian Rosa talking about working with Alon Cruz, being, helping him out, particularly over the last week and a half, getting him ready for this fight. Alon Cruz is an underdog to potentially target, but just a lot of unknowns with him, now being out there Extreme Couture and what will he look like at 155 pounds. I don't know if you got any thoughts on that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Alon Cruz, 78-inch reach, huge reach for the division. And the fact that he was competing at, featherweight is pretty crazy. So we will have to see how his debut goes at 155 pounds. But, I mean, this matchup does scream volatility for me, right? Like, I think that this could be a sneaky matchup to target because Uros Medic will be a very popular play, especially if people have tuned into the Contender Series. I believe our ownership is dictating that as well and saying that Medic, a lot of people getting behind Medic because they think that he can go out there and put Alon Cruz away. Now, I do believe that he can do that, but there are questions around Uros Medic, like strength of schedule coming from Alaska FC. Like, we don't like that promotion because there's such a weak opposition, in a weak, like, talent pool out there. So on the Contender Series, he looks great. On the scale, he looked big and impressive. Is at King's MMA now. So you have Medic at King's MMA, Cruz at Extreme Couture. I'm excited to see the fight. An upset here would not surprise me because Medic hasn't been really tested outside of round 1, but I still favor Medic.
One lineup question. Do you want one or none Jan DraftKings GPP? I say none.
In a
DraftKings GPP, one lineup.
One lineup, no.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in terms of that. Someone asked about how confident are you that Tim Elliott takes Jordan Espinosa down twice? If
you listen to the strategy show, you know that trust and confidence does not mix with Tim Elliott. Okay. We have been burned by Tim Elliott, but we've also, taken Tim Elliott to the top of GPPs because of what his potential is. So you have to understand that for this fight. Now, I think that he's a sneaky salary to target. He's at 8,200. Initially, he was the underdog, but was at 8,200 on DraftKings. I found that to be interesting. Now the money has kind of caught up to that. A lot of people are throwing money at Tim Elliott, and it's based on his pace, his motor, and his takedowns. Like, when he takes people down, he does look for submissions, right? So per 15 minutes, Tim Elliott attempts 1.2 submissions, and that's quite a bit. I think if you're looking at for a guy that's going to go out there and try to hunt for the victory, Tim Elliott is a pretty good candidate for that. But if Espinosa stays on the outside and kind of picks him apart, you do worry about that as well.
FanDuel Cash, Islam, and Joe B. or Brady and Sterling?
FanDuel cash.
I would lean Brady
20.
Sterling.
So we got 22 and 15. And then we have Aljamain, who's 17, and who?
Brady.
Give me Islam and Joe B.
Interesting.
Because Joe B's going to have to defend Askar Askarov's takedowns.
Yeah. Phillips or Rogerio? I like Phillips in that one. DraftKings.
Yeah, I have plenty of Rogerio Bontarian, but Phillips, I think, is the most popular under 8,000 value play that probably will come in here heavily owned.
I'm sure there's going to be a question that if you're new to MMA, you're going to wonder stacking fights. The only time I look at stacking fights, if it's 9 fights or less on a card, at 15 fights, no interest.
Yeah, if a stack takes it down tonight, so be it.
The only fight I would consider stacking in this card is Jan and Sterling.
Even then, I would agree though, because of the weight class and how tough both guys are and how they have skills in all departments.
Someone asked, why is Drew Dober a 4-1 dog? Part of it is the narrative around Islam. I think the other part of it is a lot of people believing that Drew Dober can't stop the takedown tonight.
Yeah, I mean, like Islam Makhachev probably shouldn't be as heavily favored. I think that it's kind of been the line has been hammered because of the hype surrounding Khabib and what Khabib says about Islam Makhachev. So Drew Dober's a dangerous guy, man, like a really dangerous guy. And if you get caught slipping for a second, you can end up looking at the lights. A Dober knockout win is probably one of the best underdog prop bets. I really do, because that's his path to victory. He's probably not going to outclass Islam Makhachev for 15 minutes. And if he hits and hurts Islam Makhachev, he's probably going to finish him. So that's one of the best underdog prop bets out there. But I foresee Makhachev just taking him down, rinse and repeat.
By the way, speaking of the betting lines, prop bets, go over to oddshopper.awesemo.com to check out the lines over there. You can also sign up for free to track your bets and receive alerts when a line does move, where a line that you want to get at. So be sure to check that out over at oddshopper.awesemo.com. Jared brings up a great point about Islam. How concerned are you about his chin? We've seen him get knocked out before.
Let me say that you have small gloves on, right? If you get caught with a big shot on the right spot, it's very difficult to not get finished. When you see like people wobble constantly or people get knocked out like a ton of times, let's say an Alistair Overeem, right? That's when you start worrying about that accumulation of damage. But, a lone loss, I can't really hang that over his head. He has improved. He's gone back into the octagon since then, rattled off some impressive wins. So it's not like it's his last fight, and we're banking it off of that.
Phillips or Cruz, DraftKings GPP. I side with Phillips there.
Well, it depends on which Cruz we're talking, right? Are we talking Dominic Cruz? Or are we talking Elon Cruz?
I would think Elon Cruz, just based on the pricing, I would think.
Yeah, it's still Phillips for me.
Yeah. It's just kind of where I would go. Cruz or Kenny Last Man DK. That's got to be obviously Dominic Cruz, I'm guessing. Probably lean Cruz in that one.
It's such a hard fight to break down. I don't think people understand how hard that fight is to break down, because you have a guy who has been absent for a while and has been constantly away from the sport due to injuries, taking time off, randomly popping back in the sport and acting like he hasn't never left. But he did not have success against Henry Cejudo, and did not have success against Cody Garbrandt. So his last fight and his last victory is 5 years ago against Uriah Faber. A lot has happened in 5 years. I am leaning Kenny, and it hurts me to say, and I don't like the fight for GPPs, but I do think that Kenny, slight edge.
Someone just mentioned about their thought about playing Trevin Jones, but the ownership on him is kind of concerning. He's approaching 20%. That's kind of high.
Trevin Jones is 20%.
Approaching. He's like, let me just look and see. It's like 16.6. That's kind of high to me.
Dude, there's 15 fights on this card. Where's the ownership? Who's not being owned? Well, you can't say everything, obviously. But.
So we've got four fighters under 10%. Kennedy, Dober, Megan, Souza.
Dober is under 10%. I would much rather Dober than Trevin Jones, just based on 70% finish rate, KO ability.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one. See here, favorite upset. Kyler Phillips for me.
I mean, I'm not trying to just keep pumping Kyler Phillips, but
Benavidez is another. I think is a good one there too.
I am on the Thiago Santos side tonight.
You do love you. Mike want to know what our highest owned GPP fighter, not name Amanda Nunez, and how much we have of that fighter.
I have a lot of Adesanya.
Yeah, I do have a lot of Adesanya. I'm trying to think of other ones that were. I had exposure kind of everywhere. But Adesanya and Nunez were the two big ones that I was really targeting.
I targeted Adesanya a lot because that saving of $400, right? As good as the matchup is for Amanda Nunez, does allow me to play some other strong fighters in my lineup.
Yeah. By the way, do appreciate everyone here on a Saturday afternoon. We are just under 30 minutes away or 25 minutes away from lock here. Of course, if you're not subscribed to Awesemo right here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. Of course, also be sure to give the video here a thumbs up. Of course, working my way through the questions. We'll try to get through all of them here. Of course, also be sure to hit them up over there in Slack. Next channel. Can Adesanya keep Jan off him for 5 rounds?
I think he's going to get pressed against the cage. I really do. I think he is going to get pressed against the cage. I just don't know how successful Blachowicz will be in those positions. But a big body wearing on you can definitely zap your energy. That would be the game plan for me, right? Like if I'm coaching Jan Blachowicz, it's like, okay, if we stay on the outside, all right, we're playing his game. We're allowing him to dictate the fight. We're going to get picked apart because of the speed advantage. What we need to do is cut off the cage, immediately press him against the cage, start dirty boxing him, try for some takedowns, get him to really fatigue his arms so that maybe later in the fight, we can start having some success in the striking. It's a smaller cage, right? Smaller cages tend to favor grapplers. They are big guys. Adesanya will get pressed against the cage, but I think that he'll pass.
One of the interesting things that I'm interested, like in the first minute of that fight, how does Jan come out? Does he come out tentative? Does he try to see exactly what Israel is doing? That to me is going to tell me a lot about that fight. Just how does Jan approach the first part of that fight?
Right. So Jan will probably be aggressive until Adesanya makes him respect him, right? Like a guy's moving up a weight class, so he probably has in his mind, I can walk through his shots. If he gets hit and his head snaps back from a really strong, powerful, straight shot that he did not see, that's going to make him a little tentative. But if Adesanya does not make him respect him early, and he's just kind of playing with the hands and he's trying to dance and move footwork, there's nothing that's going to keep Blachowicz off of you. Blachowicz has that Polish power, and he's going to look to land it early.
Question over in Slack. Does Blachowicz outscore many of the cheapies in a loss if the fight goes deep?
Not really, because if we're going to think about it, right, how many big shots can Adesanya take from Blachowicz? You did see Kelvin Gastelum hit Adesanya quite a bit and hurt him. So in a loss, I don't see how Blachowicz would score so well when he only has a 3.49 strikes per minute output. I think an Aljamain Sterling in a loss can perform a lot better than a Jan Blachowicz. Obviously, you were talking about an 800 difference in salary, but he is a part of a title fight.
Next question. It was Tim Elliott or Bontarian FanDuel GPP.
Okay, so let's check out this FanDuel. So we have Rogerio Bontarian at 13 and Tim Elliott at 15. Well, I will say that I would go Tim Elliott. I really would, because I think that at 15, at one point he was an underdog. A lot of money is coming in on him. It's not like you're having to spend up a ridiculous amount. He's now a favorite, and he's priced as the underdog. So I would take advantage of that. But Bontarian at 13, not a bad play. Not a bad play. Kai Kara France is a guy that we're really not talking about. And Kai Kara France, it's because of the weight class, right? Like 135-pound fighters, 125-pound fighters. You're a little tentative to plug him in your lineup because you're worried about finishing ability and what happens if it just goes the distance. But Kai Kara France really has strong power for the division. So Bontarian's got to be careful.
Yeah, he hasn't scored well. I'm going to pull up Kai Kara France here to kind of pull the numbers. So if you look at, so he had a loss in his last fight against Royval. But if you look at his wins in the UFC, 61.7 points against Nam, 82.4 against De La Rosa, 62.4 against Paiva. He did have 110 against Garcia, so I think that's something to play in there. Appreciate A. Dean for the super chat. He goes Sterling and Phillips or Jan and Dober.
I would say, because of those two options, I would say Sterling and Phillips, because I think Dober's possible to get a finish or get an upset. I just think that an Aljamain Sterling upset is a lot more likely.
Lemos or Rakic?
So we haven't really talked about either, and I don't hate either fighter. Lemos, okay, but she's priced pretty up at 8,700. I think that if you've been following Rakic in his career and you think he can start to throw impressive power, mix in takedowns, because that's what he's going to have to do against Thiago Santos, because staying on the outside, you're welcoming the danger. I would say Alexander Rakic at 8,600 would be a guy in that particular scenario that I would be targeting.
Best fighter under 8,400.
Under 84? I don't want anything really with Askarov, because I think he's going to have to work, and Benavidez is going to test that cardio. Under 84, it's got to be Tim Elliott, as ugly as that is.
Yeah. Let's see here. Someone's asking what your thoughts about Joe Benavidez, and someone else asked about Benavidez by decision at plus 250.
I don't hate it, and I am leaning Benavidez based on the experience. 28-7 overall, fighting an undefeated fighter, Askar Askarov, who's 13-0, does have a one draw on there. In the UFC, though, he hasn't been like insanely impressive. It's not like he's knocking people out or submitting people left and right like he was on the regional scene. Very, very skilled fighter. Joe B's got to be careful. And as of late, Joe B's been struggling, but it has been against Davis and Figueiredo. I mean, just a little bit ago, a couple years ago, we're talking about him, having a great performance against Alex Perez, Jussier Formiga. So the skills are there for Joseph Benavidez as long as he avoids the danger. I don't foresee him finishing Askar Askarov, but out scrambling, maybe outworking the tired Askar Askarov, who had a rough weight cut, is a possibility. By decision is kind of the path that I would go. I want to ask our listeners, Jason, who is going to break the slate? I kind of want to see what they're thinking and kind of see where their head's at. I'm always interested to see and hear back from our listeners.
We'll let those kind of pile up here. Over in Slack, are you okay with fading Lamos and Souza fight? Doesn't look exciting. Yeah, I'm okay with fading that fight.
There's a lot of love coming on Lamos, right? Like, we have to be clear. A lot of people love what they see from Lamos. Strong boxing, good overall fighter. I just feel like I'm prioritizing other fights.
Thoughts on Olberg for DraftKings GPP?
So I'm glad somebody brought up Olberg. It's tough to know what we're going to get, right? But from the interviews that I've listened to, which have been plenty, and from some of the fight footage that I have seen, obviously it's limited. I like what I see out of Olberg, right? Like, he has strong power and good combinations. And if he is what Israel Adesanya is saying, we could be having a nice Francis Ngannou spot right here of maybe an early finish or maybe just a knockout. I think that Olberg's somebody that I have a decent amount of.
Yeah, that 25 bonus points we get it within 60 seconds. One of the mentions in Slack, Kyler Phillips to break the slate.
Can you imagine, though? Because this kid, Kyler Phillips, has evolved into a threat everywhere, Jason, right? Like,
hilarious dude, by the way.
Is he?
Hilarious. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've had a chance to talk to him, for the past couple of years. Yeah, hilarious dude.
Wow, look at these people everybody's saying about the slate breaking. I love it. Thank you guys for being involved.
Someone asked about some super draft advice. So just kind of looking at it here, I really think whether it's in your flex or your champion, you got to look at that Jan Sterling fight. I think you're going to have the winner in that one. I would look at someone tells me Joe Benavidez, 1.4 multiplier.
I love Joe B. I mean, I'm worried about Joe B, obviously, because of, as of late, he has not been there. If he loses this fight, I bet you he retires.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. FanDuel cash preferred combo, Elliott and Phillips versus Sterling and Alon Cruz.
Yeah, first one for me. Come on.
Yeah, it'd be the same one there. Better chance of winning, Alon or Kennedy?
Gosh. Alon Cruz.
I'd probably say Alon Cruz. Jared, I don't even have to get Pete to answer this question. Pete's not dropping to 135.
Yeah, right. No. We hit my goal. I hit my goal weight today, though, Jason. So it's pretty good, man.
Yeah. I don't think you can ever hit 136 on a scale. Just saying, bro. Just saying.
Never.
Yeah. When's the last time you saw 136 on a scale?
I think
freshman year of high school.
Freshman year of college, I think.
Wow. Let's see here. Is anyone out or scratched? Who
is right, Jason? Who is right? I said, now I hope I don't jinx it. Can you imagine if I jinx it? But I said we would come out unscathed, no problems at the weigh-ins. We had one fighter miss weight, but
why are you doing this?
Because I'm happy. We finally have a full fight card, right?
And there's gonna be like 3 fighters who get back spasms.
Okay, that happens. Yeah, right. If that happens, right? Then I don't know.
Do not tempt the MMA gods.
Then I'm a wizard or something. Because to this point, every week at the Apex, we've had issues. We had Askar Askarov not take, miss weight. But this was how professionals should be. This is how it is. You shouldn't be missing weight. You're getting paid to make weight. Okay? And medical should be done. Everything should be fine. At the highest level of the UFC, unless they're scrambling and it's a last-minute fighter, there's no excuse for any of this.
If this happens, we're all blaming Pete. Because he just tempted the MMA gods.
Yeah.
Santos or Alon Cruz FanDuel cash?
Santos, baby.
If Jake Matthews wins by finish, does it pretty much guarantee he is optimal?
Jake Matthews is a very good underdog to target. If you're looking at that Nzechukwu, 7,200, Matthews can definitely get a win. 65% finish rate, skilled everywhere. I would imagine that a win would break the slate. I just don't really see it happening.
Someone asked me if any changes to either of our straight up fight picks. No.
So our straight up fight picks that was non-DFS related. I did pick Souza, and I'm not picking Souza. I'm picking Lemos now. Great question.
Yeah. Sean Brady or Mario Batista FanDuel cash?
Nice question. Mario Batista.
Yeah, I like Mario Batista there as well. DraftKings captain. I'm actually in a captain contest. And let me see who I put in that one.
I'm gonna try it because I always get Nunez in those contests.
It's like, God, Nunez was like 15-4 or something like that. I actually went Peter Yan at captain, 11-1.
Ooh, okay. I mean, it forces you to pick a lot of underdogs.
Because if Peter Yan wins, he's gonna have to be in your lineup. I just don't see how a Peter Yan win doesn't make him optimal. Now, my fear in that is if Aljo's able to get the takedown. We have not seen Peter Yan. What is he off his back? That's going to be a question mark. Someone asked about odds of splitting the 200,000 winner on DraftKings. Yeah, you're going to split that most likely. It's
I would
9,000 entries. I mean, yeah, the odds are. Someone asked, any possible scratch to be a high alert for tonight? Not that I'm aware of.
Not unless I just jinxed this.
It's gonna be all Pete's fault. How about Medic as a FanDuel MVP?
I can see it happening. If he is what he showed on the Contender Series, he looks like a very dangerous fighter going up against Elon Cruz. But I just don't know enough to really recommend him.
So by the way, we're 10 minutes here away from lock. We'll try to get in as much of these questions as possible. Or Olberg and Kenny, or Nunez and Elliott FanDuel GPP?
Nunez and Elliott.
Phillips or Santos?
Ooh, that's good. Give me Phillips because of the price.
Askarov or Elliott FanDuel cash?
Elliott.
Brady or Olberg DraftKings?
Olberg.
Thoughts on Kennedy?
Kennedy and Zachku. It's, again, another fighter that we don't really know a lot about. And to bank on him going out there and try to implement takedowns against Olberg, if Olberg doesn't have a gas tank, you could see an upset here where Zachku is, 7-1, massive for the division, 6'5", 83-inch reach, 6-inch reach advantage in that fight. So, I mean, those are the kind of narratives of putting him in your lineup.
This is DraftKings cash, Santos and Phillips or Yan Espinoza?
You lost me at Espinoza. I like the first one.
I do have some Espinoza in my lineups.
I understand it because of the volatility of the matchup. I remember Espinoza, pretty sure I fought on the same card as Espinoza a couple times. And, I know a fighter in New England. I had some success against them. So I'm kind of like, I don't know, biased, I guess.
I've heard a lot of fighters have wanted to fight Espinoza in the UFC because they believe, that they like the path to victory there.
Yeah.
Can you play Nunez and Adesanya together on a FanDuel GPP, or is it better to play one of the two?
21 and 23, Jason. You're the FanDuel guy. What does that leave you? Does that leave you completely strapped? And
I would. Yeah, I think it really. Unless you like those $8, $9, $10 options, I'd probably only look at going with one of them.
Yeah, because then you'd have to put a Phillips, a Santos in your lineup, a Drew Dober.
Look, I'm so confident in Nunez tonight. My only fear would be is what happens if Yan Izzy goes to like the fourth round. Could Izzy rack up a ton of points? That's be a fear, but I think that if you're going to put, say, Nunez as a captain, you're looking at that possible first round finish bonus. So I think that's something to potentially think there. See here, Elliott FanDuel cash sounds very 2021.
Yes, it does. I would agree with that.
Of course, we're about 8 minutes or so away here from lock, so you got to get those lineups in if you've not got them in now. Matthews or Dober, DraftKings.
Dober has a higher finishing upside, so I will say him, but a Matthews upset in a close decision would not really surprise me.
Best candidate for a first-round knockout.
I would say Olberg, just from what I've seen on tape. Olberg and Medic.
Since someone asked if Pete's got any vodka in that Gatorade, I'm gonna say it's no. I know it's not.
Yeah, it's a no.
If I'm not overweight on Elliott on FanDuel at non-MVP, does playing some Espinoza MVP make sense, or will he not score enough to win?
So I'll tell you that Elliott's probably going to come in with some big ownership because people see that 150-point possibility production. And Espinoza is a great leverage play against a very volatile fighter who kind of just throws everything at his opponents and has gassed himself at times, has run into submission. So Espinoza is another leverage play to consider.
Anthony mentioned, he says Jan has good takedown defense. My response to that would be, outside Jimmy Rivera, who has he fought that you consider a wrestler?
Yeah.
And not Uriah Faber at this point of his career. I'm sorry.
If you look at Aljamain Sterling's takedowns, right, I thought he had a larger success rate than he does. I mean, Aljamain Sterling's success for his takedowns, only 29%. But it goes to what he was saying. It's like, I don't care if I'm 1 for 10 on my takedowns. I get one, I can really change the tide of the fight.
What is our take on the height advantage Anderson has? I don't think it plays anything into it.
Yeah.
This is my reality. I don't think Meek and Anderson can stop Amanda Nunes from taking her down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too impressed with Megan Anderson. I really ain't.
I mean, I was thinking about it earlier today. I just said, I mean, like, what have you seen on film? Because, and it's a football analogy, film don't lie.
Yeah.
I just don't see watching Megan Anderson on film to where I think she's going to win. I mean, literally, it's less than 5% chance in my mind.
Yeah, same here. I just want to throw out some little nuggets for people that are kind of curious about like high output. Some fighters that have like a really high striking output. Peter Yan, 6 strikes per minute. Kyler Phillips, 6 strikes per minute. Kai Kara France, 5 strikes per minute. Alon Cruz, 8 strikes per minute. And Mario Batista, 6 strikes per minute. So if you do the math on that, if they go the distance, a lot of those fighters could have some success.
Single entry, DraftKings GPP, Brady or Batista?
75%. Give me Batista. Batista 75% finish rate. Brady 46% finish rate.
Makhachev or Brady, DraftKings?
Makhachev, yeah, a lot.
Is 50% Izzy too much for GPP, or should I pivot to another share of Brady or Makhachev? I have 6 Izzy and 3 of each of the other. 50%, I'm fine with that number.
I'm okay with it. Yeah, I mean, you're kind of putting a lot of your eggs in one basket, but it's a pretty good basket to be in.
Yeah. Adesanya or Olberg, FanDuel?
Adesanya for me, because Blachowicz should try to take him down.
Michael says last pick 8,100, best pick DraftKings. I'd have to know the rest of your lineup, see who you have available. But if you're thinking Cruz or Kenny, I prefer that fight for cash as opposed to GPP. If you told me I had to play one, probably Cruz.
Okay, so to back up your Cruz point, right? Even though I am leaning Kenny, Dom Cruz's takedown rate in his fights is 3.29. So that's pretty high. It's the highest on the entire slate. So if he's able to catch Casey Kenny off guard, he could take him down.
Great comment in YouTube. Make sure you get your wives to make a random lineup. Never fails.
It's true. It's true.
What's Mama Pete got tonight? That's what we really need to know.
Yeah, she's not doing it tonight. I mean, usually I watch the fights with my mom and my girl, and she's not coming up tonight. We're actually going to a buddy's.
Best pick 7,200 and below. Oof.
Okay, really dumpster diving here, huh? So you got Njoku, Jones.
Jan. That's the one I'd had the most comfortable with.
It'd be Jan or Dober.
Yeah. John saying time for some wings. By the way, John, those wings on Twitter look delicious.
Yes, they did. Yeah, so, I mean, only a couple of minutes now, guys. Good luck to everybody. You know, if you have some last-minute questions, absolutely.
True, false. We will have a quick finish bonus on DraftKings.
15 fights, I'm saying, yeah.
We've only had, 2 this year? I want to say.
Yeah, we haven't.
They're both on the same card.
Haven't had too many. I want to see a quick submission. That's what I want to see.
Best fighter per point on FanDuel and DraftKings. To me, it's Nunez, no question. I think Nunez is going to win the first round. That's just my prediction.
Really?
I just think it's a wide range of talent.
Okay.
I mean, look, Nunez could have an off night, no question about it. I mean, it's possible, but I just don't see it. You know. Batista, Elliott, Lemos, good trio.
I don't hate it at all. I kind of like that.
I don't have a lot of Lemos. That's the one that I'm not.
If I was in a 150 max, I absolutely would, but because I had a more selective core for 20 max, I didn't really get there.
Boy, Rob's saying if he wins big tonight, he's going to send you some wings from Buffalo.
Hey, that sounds good.
I've done Buffalo. I've had chicken wings in Buffalo.
Hey, that's, yeah. Oh, man, this is a ridiculous card, as Dylan says. Yes, it is.
Is Lemos the leverage that no one is talking about on the higher end of the card?
I mean, it could be, right? Like a lot of DFS players are biased and they don't want to roster women's MMA. Let's be real. Like if it's not Amanda Nunez, they move on. And Lemos at 8,700, it's a solid play.
Of course, we have now, we're right now at lock. So good luck to everyone tonight. Of course, myself and Pete will be over in our premium Slack channel. So if you're an Awesemo Plus subscriber, we will be over there talking to you about the fights. By the way, make sure to be over here tomorrow as we've got NASCAR Live Before Lock, NHL Strategy Show, plus also got coverage for the NBA All-Star Game. So that is going to do it for this edition of the UFC Live Before Lock show. Myself and Pete will be back next week. Of course, there's pretty much a card every week at this point. So we'll be here next Thursday for the strategy show, next Saturday for the Live Before the Lock. So good luck to everyone. And as you exit the show, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're not subscribed to also, be sure to subscribe right here on YouTube. We will see you next week.